Yes, hi. My name is Roger Jab, and today I'm presenting my final Python data visualization project, which is to determine how the economy and the social status influence the well-being of the people living in a certain country or the certain region. So I have explored the data set from Cargo, which is to see how factors like GDP and social factors like family support, also to see how factors like life expectancy, they determine the quality of human life in a certain country. So my goal is to show like why the world or the economy of a country provide the foundation of the social well-being of people in that country, but social infrastructure, it also provide or it elevate or maximize the impact of people to have a better or high quality social well-being. So starting with my analysis, I have uploaded this couple of libraries to streamline my analysis processes and also for visualization purposes. And as you can see here, I have imported a beam, which is white grid for aesthetic. And since I also wanted to see all the columns that are available in my dataset, I have written this line of code here to display the maximum number of columns. So the dataset that I have used is the World Happiness Report dataset, which comprises data from 2015 to 2023. So I downloaded the data from Kaggle and loaded in my Google Colab notebook. So as you can see here, this is the sample data set. And we have attributes like country, year, region, happiness rank, happiness score, GDP, social support, life expectancy, freedom, generosity, and corruption. So starting with analysis, I started with the data cleaning, which is, as you can see here in my dataset, and that is why I have visualized them. We have gaps in the names of the columns, or you can call them the attributes. And this can cause error when you run a code. So what I've started to do is to remove this spacing in the column heading and also added the underscore. That is the line of the code here that I have written. Replace the space with the underscore. So to make it simple for refellow, I have called all the column name that I have in my dataset, as you can see them here. And I chose the three columns, which is happiness score, GDP, and life expectancy, in order to clean all the entries or the rows which have no, or they are missing some data. And after doing that, I have recorded the data set again in the data frame. As you can see here, this is the final cleaned data set. As you can see in the previous one, we had the gaps, but here they're filled with the underscore. So I have printed the total number of entries, which is I have 1,361 rows and 11 columns in my dataset. And to visualize again, I've called the data frame to see how the head looks like. Okay, so in my analysis, I have focused on mainly 4 questions. This is what my analysis is trying to answer. The first question is to identify the strongest predictors of happiness in this country, which we have the data in our dataset. And the second question is to compare how these drivers vary across the geographic region, and also to track how happiness has changed over a decade of global volatility, and also to identify the outlier country which they defy the standard economic rules of happiness because there's always some outliers in the United States. So we also try to look which country subject our analysis with the challenge of outlier. So starting with the first question, I have created the heat map to explain the strongest predictors of happiness. And so this is a correlation heat map which show the drivers of happiness. And okay, so if you try to look here carefully, we have the column and row here, we have the happiness score and as well as my key variable were GDP, social support, and also life expectancy. And as you can see here, from the happiness score to these three attributes here, for the GDP, we have the correlation value of 0.72, which is high, which shows there is high correlation between the happiness score of a country or people living in a certain region with the GDP of that country. And also the social support, like having people to count on during the time of travels. Also, it correlates high to the happiness score and as well as the life expectancy. The country with the life expectancy, they tend to have the highest happiness score. So from this heat map, we can see that we have these three variables which give a very high correlation values uh, as opposed to the happiness score, which is true and which proves to us that yes, money can buy happiness. As we can see here, the GDP, and for people who they are surrounded by the family member, I mean, people with extended family or the people with family who they can count on, they also tend to have high happiness score due to a good social support. And also, this is like an indicator for countries with high life expectancy. They tend to have the high happiness score. And also, if we look to other variables like generosity, I mean, being able to give to people maybe money, you can see here the correlation value is minimum 0.08, which tells us like it is not a very impactful drivers of the happiness to people. So moving forward, I have created a trend line to see like which country or which region they tend to have highest happiness score over time from 2015 to 2023. And as you can see here in our chart, um, you can see region like Australia and New Zealand, they are on the top of this line chart and following by North America. And the good observation from this line chart here is you can see here the trend is uniform over time, which means that this country they tend to have a very consistent average happiness score over time, which tells that for a country which has established a very good GDP, also the happiness score of these people tends to be higher over time. And to move forward, I also wanted to create a bar chart to visualize the top 10 happiest countries in this data set. And to start with, I have filtered to see what is the latest year in my dataset, which is 2023. So I have created the first bar chart for 2023 to visualize the 10 top happiest countries in the world. And as we can see here, we have Finland, Denmark, and Iceland at the top for 2023. But in order to see the granular, I have also created the animated bar chart for the 10 most happiest country to the evolution from 2015 to 2023, and I can display it here so that we can see which country they appear at the top. Like for 2015 here, oh, sorry, this is 2023. Let's go back to 2015. We have Switzerland, Iceland, Denmark, Norway, and Canada and Finland. Let's display to see how this vary over the period of 2015 to 2023. So yeah, as you have seen here, we still have Finland, Denmark, Iceland at the top, which tells us, okay, these are the mostly sticky country, which tend to have a very high happiness score. Okay, so to move forward, I also created the box approach to see how the happiness score and the region vary in order to give us stories like, okay, to some of this country, people tend to have a very large gap of the happiness score. For instance, in Australia and New Zealand, you can see here at the top, it has a very um, small, I can say, box plot. The width is very small, and the median happiness score is above 7. The same to country like North America, which tends to have a very small or not wide box plot. But let's look at a country like Middle East and Northern Africa. We can see here we have a very wide box plot, and this tells us like though the median happiness score is above 5, but you can see there's a very large variation, which tells us like people in this region, they tend to have a very wide gap of the happiness score, which is um, the case to this country. Like you may find people who are extremely rich and people who are extremely poor. That's why we have a very wide box plot as compared to other countries like Australia, which have a very small box plot. So to see the outliers in my dataset, I have created this is scatter plot over the entire timeline of my dataset, 2015 to 2023. And as you can see here, this is 2023. We have country like Luxembourg and Ireland, which have a very high GDP and very high happiness score, which tells us like, okay, there is a linear relationship between the happiness score and also the GDP. If you have high GDP, it correlates with the fact that you have also high happiness score in that country or region. So let's look for the outlier. I mean, and this is also based on the um, knowledge, on the prior knowledge that I have. For instance, as you can see here, we have countries like Costa Rica, which is located in the region of Latin America and Caribbean, which we know their GDP is not as high as compared to countries like um, Argentina. But you can see here, Costa Rica, it has high happiness score as compared to the country like uh, Mauritius, which have high GDP. And this is because of the factors like social support, because a lot of people in the Latin America, they have a very strong family bond, which makes the Costa Rica as an outlier to my data set. So let's display this to see how the trend goes over time. between the happiness score and the GDP of this region that you're trying to see. So you can see